This might be the weirdest combination race that I've ever seen.
You good will be great. We can't afford to play safe. You want it now, well don't wait. You miss all the shots you don't take. Hey, yeah, I know what you told me. If you want it that bad, then show me. You gotta want it more than I do. Cause I see the greatness inside you. Yeah, we may rise, we may fall. Yeah, but we got way more in store.
This might be the weirdest combination race that I've ever seen in the history of all races. We've got 2017 Audi R8 and a 2005 Dodge Ram single cab Cummins. They make the perfect competition, right?
Cut from the same cloth, absolutely.
Mid-engine supercar versus a truck that was left to die at the auction, and one is very dirty, one is very clean, and they're completely different animals, but they're both fast in their own way. And today, in this vlog, we're gonna see which one's faster from a dig and from a roll. They're both all-wheel drive, they both make good power to their respective weights, and they both have 8s in their name. We've got an Audi R8 and 8-ball. It's gonna be an awesome day. But before we go any further, I just wanted to bring you guys into the new pole building real quick to let you know that we are more than halfway through Dream Diesel giveaway number 20. So if you guys want to grab your entries for Convict, aka that one of one chalk gray F450 Platinum, that comes with $30,000 cash, tap that link below and grab some entries, because who knows, guys, you might be taking that thing home in the beginning of November. All right, guys, so we're gonna go over some specs real quick between these two completely unrelated vehicles. I never thought that I'd actually have the opportunity to race one of these head to head. It's gonna be kind of interesting. I actually think that my money's on one way more than the other, but we're gonna have to get to that in a minute. So let's start with the Audi R8 that I just recently picked up. This is 2017 Gen 2 Audi R8. It is not the V10 Plus because I plan on doing some things that involve some boost later down the road, and I figured to get an additional, I think it's like 50 or 60 horsepower and pay considerably more money for a V10 Plus, it would be obsolete when it got boost anyway. So this thing right here has the Quattro system. It makes 540 horsepower through a 5.2 liter V10 with a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. And it weighs roughly 3,600 pounds. Its 0 to 60 is around 3.6 seconds, so they say. I haven't tested it myself, I'm just going based on Google. And then we've got 8-ball that was left abandoned to basically be an auction truck. And then I ended up pumping it up with a bunch of performance enhancing parts. Now this thing makes 1,113 at the rear wheels, but it is a 4-wheel drive truck, so I guess you could say at all wheels. Through its stock bottom end, 156,000 mile 24 valve 5.9 Cummins. We've got twin turbos up under the hood, which we'll pop here in a second to show you guys a little bit more of. It's putting all the power down through a fully built Firepunk 48 RE with an Anteater control module, fully built and fire-ringed head, steed speed manifold, and some other goodies that we'll jump into in a second. It also has extremely bald front tires because it's a burnout monster, so we took the bald tires from the rear, have maybe 50 miles on them on the front now. So would that be considered an advantage or a disadvantage, Shake? Weight savings or
weight savings
less traction?
And more, but you're gonna get more traction because there's more rubber touching the road.
Ah, yes, see, it's an advantage.
Yeah.
Exactly my thought. 8-ball is the definition of far from stock. We've got an S480 in the atmosphere over an S460 7.7, all fed by a steed speed 2nd gen manifold. Again, although it doesn't look fancy because it's just the factory plastic valve cover, there is a fully built head on this thing. We've got a 12mm bigger injection pump by Exergy on it. It's got 250 over injectors, and it is a ton of fun. It's actually surprisingly fast. We've raced some other comparable all-wheel drive vehicles, and needless to say, the owners of said vehicles were extremely shocked. So oh my god, I kind of feel where we're gonna go with this day, but I'm not gonna put my money on it yet. And finally, this truck weighs roughly 6,500 pounds. We've done 0 weight savings on it. If anything, we've added weight by putting 22-inch American forces on it. Now, where things get very interesting is gearing and power to weight ratio. This truck really doesn't do anything over 90, but it's a monster from 0 to that. Whereas this car, on paper, doesn't make all that much horsepower. 560 in today's terms really isn't anything to write home about, but a 7-speed dual clutch transmission shifts way faster than a 48 RE, which was really kind of intended to be in pickup trucks, and I think you can find them in tractors too, if I'm not mistaken. And then another interesting tidbit is the power to weight ratios when broken down in horsepower by weight. So 6,500 pounds, 1,000 horsepower plus roughly at the wheels right now, and 500 wheel horsepower to 3,600 pounds. That nets you 7.2 horsepower per pound, and over on this side, it nets you 6.5 horsepower per pound, so things should be kind of interesting. So from the factory, that truck never came with launch control, which I'm sure you're very surprised about, but that car does have a built-in launch control, so it should be kind of interesting to see how launch control naturally aspirated with way less torque compares to no launch control driver mod in Mexico with a crap ton of torque that hopefully doesn't introduce us to Uncle Rodney today. Let's head on down to Mexico, shall we? Out to Mexico, I did forget to mention that the R8 does have one mod, and that's a Capristo Valvetronic exhaust and a minor tune, so that factory 500 horsepower number might be slightly altered by 50 horsepower, and that might be generous.
Take your eyes off me, eyes off me, can't take your eyes off me, eyes off me.
Few moments later.
All right, guys, we're back from Mexico, and we got to talk about the outcome of those head-to-head matchups, because it's honestly shocking just to see how tied and true they are in a comparative sense. We're talking a farm truck here that's meant to haul hay around, and it was like 300 horsepower from the factory. And then we're talking an R8, a German supercar that's meant to rip on the Autobahn and sustain 100+ mile-an-hour speeds for long periods of time while cruising in comfort sipping coffee. So at first there were some technical difficulties with trying to get the consistent launch control on the R8. It takes a very, very precious touch. On video, it's simple. Turn traction control off, put it in dynamic mode, mash the brake, mash the throttle, it automatically detects where to go. But that first run, we were having some issues, and that's why the R8 didn't even move. Run number 2 wasn't exactly timed right. The R8 was in launch control. 8-ball did have a whole bunch of boosts ready to unload, and unload it did. So we'll kind of disqualify that one as well. It wasn't a true test. And then run number 3 was probably the best out of the 3, where the R8 was in launch control. The vehicles got off to a good start. 8-Ball took the boosted launch, but the R8 was actually beginning to reel it in. So on a heads up, zero variability sense, it seems like they're pretty tied to be true. The R8's definitely more of a top end performer. 8-Ball gets off the line ridiculously hard. If it didn't have as much rotating mass, I think that it would just prove to the point of how much of a dig monster it actually is. But there's no discounting the R8, because when all the technology capabilities align, I think that it would almost be dead tied. So now let's talk about the roll races. The R8 was being shifted manually with its steering wheel paddles, and 8-Ball was in 2-wheel drive, which is a critical mistake, because even at 60 miles an hour, that truck, with all the torque that it makes, spins easily. And spin the truck did. The R8 took off, was tracking perfectly, and the driver of 8-Ball actually had to let off the throttle because all he was doing was really spinning and laying down some black marks. Got back in the throttle and then held its position with the R8 until they both let off the throttle. The second roll race, 8-Ball switched into 4-wheel drive. The R8 was still in manual, but the driver of the R8 actually didn't make his shift, hit the rev limiter, and 8-Ball was gone. Race number 3, 8-Ball and 4-wheel drive brake boosting, R8 still in manual. That was a very good run where they were basically even the entire time. And then the 4th run, the R8 shifted into automatic mode, mashed the throttle on the 3rd beep, whereas 8-Ball was doing brake boosting, and that's what gave the pickup truck just a little bit of a jump, but they pretty much stayed together the entire run until they let off. Honestly, guys, I'm blown away by how dissimilar these vehicles are, but how similar they are in straight line and dig performance. Really, this is a race that never even should have happened. On paper, an R8 would have never considered that truck on paper being an opponent, but as you can see, when you're assessing both of these things and trying to kind of get an idea as to what they're capable of, I'd say that if we go back to that number of horsepower per pound, it actually somewhat kind of ties out. Now, it'd be really interesting to get both of those vehicles at a domestic track, radials on 8-Ball, and then truly see how they stack up against one another on paper, and that might just have to happen here before the winter months come in and hit us hard in the Northeast. So what do you guys think? Are you surprised? Are you not surprised? 8-Ball's an absolute animal, but the R8, although kind of somewhat moderate in horsepower, still stacked up against that 1,000+ horsepower beast. It just reinforces the fact that you can't look at horsepower as a number of capability, quickness, or speed. It's the overall package that really dictates what it's capable of. 10 times entries for Convict and 30 grand and later this week, so if you want to lock them in, tap that link below, explore how to get entered, and I might be seeing you in November.